I'm presenting some innovative work that was done by the Christchurch City Council starting about 15 years ago on a new way of managing our urban waterways down here. So I acknowledge that the central logo there, also I'll put in the plug for, that's the new joint venture between Canterbury and Lincoln Universities, the Waterways Centre for Freshwater Management, on which I'm supportive. So the sustainable management of urban rivers, note the question mark there. The reason for the question mark, I think, will become apparent as I go through. So it is a new design philosophy. It used to be the rivers were there for just for the drainage, really. They look kind of nice, but they were primarily there for the drainage. And then the City Council said that's not good enough. There are other values that we should be acknowledging here, and there they are highlighted in red: landscape, ecology, recreation, culture, heritage, and of course drainage is still there. So I'll just be giving a bit of background, what's done, the results, and the lessons learned. So that shows an outline of the city. That's the urban boundary in the black line, and the grey area is the urbanised part of the city. And the three rivers which are being managed in this way are the Styx out to the north there, the Avon, which runs right through the heart of the city, and the Heskett down on the southern side. And the water in those rivers arises from springs in the head zones. And that water originates from the Waimakere River, which runs across the top of the diagram there, and it flows down through the gravels and then resurfaces in the springs at that point. Now, when the European settlers came here, Christchurch was essentially a swamp. The black area on the diagram on the left indicates swamp, and as of 2006, you can see how much of that swamp still remains within the city. So there has been a huge transformation of the landscape in the last 150 years. And in a pictorial depiction of it, the Avon River in 1863, and if you know Christchurch, you'll know that that stretch of river near the Baptist Church with that glorious avenue of poplars. So again, huge transformation in the vegetation. Now an important part of this management philosophy is you have to sell it to the City Council. That is, to the City Councillors, I should say. So you do have to have an economic plan for it. Now, in the traditional value, where the drainage tended to be piped, you had a very large capital cost, which of course, being an engineered feature, tended to deteriorate and needed replacement. Even if that might only be once every 100 or 150 years, it was still a very substantial capital expenditure. And for that return on money, all you got was a very good drainage system and not a lot else. Whereas, with the new system, where they are looking at the 6 different values, the drainage, the heritage, the ecology, and so on, there's a fairly significant cost in setting up that natural treatment. Once you've got it, the maintenance is almost zero. And in addition, the value of the asset actually appreciates. It does not depreciate. So you've got a double benefit there. You have to not only sell it, of course, to the councillors, but you do have to get the local people aboard and supportive of it. So it is necessary to run an education campaign, starting with the council, but getting out into the community and getting that buy-in from the community, so that by the time you have completed the development of a facility, then it belongs to the community. Now here's just a few before and after pictures. A small stream near where I live, before and after. So there you can see the old box drain has just been ripped out. The banks have been laid back. rocks have been planted, the straight channel has been developed into a slight meander, and appropriate vegetation has been planted. That's on the Rehua Marae in St Albans. And another one, it's more than just working on the natural drainage channels. This is a stormwater facility over in the Middleton area, just immediately after it was completed, and then a few years later, after the vegetation had grown up, and it's looking pretty nice. Now that is also actually a water treatment facility. It's not just a matter of holding the water there. You actually get a benefit to the quality of the water when it is eventually released into the natural drainage system. And it's not just a matter of doing it in new or developing areas. It's very easy to put in a modern stormwater management system where you have a complete new housing area. But there are opportunities from time to time, in this case where there was a roading realignment in quite an old suburb, to acquire a bit of land to develop a soakage swale, to grass it, and then eventually to plant it, and then it grows up in that way. So it is an attractive landscape facility performing a very useful technical and environmental function. Carrying on, the timber box drain, there is still literally hundreds of kilometres of timber box drains around Christchurch on the minor channels. And below you can see what is in a new housing area, how an existing channel has been landscaped and planted, and that does great things for property values. So after some initial suspicion, you get a lot of buy-in from the people who live in that area. And on the university site, just in behind the School of Engineering, the Oakova Stream, there was a joint development by the university and the city council, just a replanting act going on there. So that is immediately after, before and after the makeover. But 5 years later, this is what you see. The top one from ground level, and the lower diagram taken from the third floor of the building. And on a larger scale, the Sticks Mill Conservation Reserve, 53 hectares. You can see how the housing is encroaching there from left to right, or left and right. Both of those housing areas are now fully developed. So the Sticks Mill Conservation Reserve is an isolated green spot. The orange roof you see in the middle is a waste transfer station, which is quite a nice juxtaposition, I think. The two lakes are artificially created, and a predator-proof fence is in process of construction around there. Now that's the aesthetics of it, but when you look into it a little more deeply, how successful is it? And I acknowledge Shelley McMurtry for this excellent graphic. So at or above the water level, things look good. The birds seem to be happy, the vegetation looks really nice. When you get into the water, the fish are responding in different ways. The eels seem to be okay. It's a bit doubtful about the trout. The whitebait seem to be okay. But when you get to the bottom of the food web, the invertebrates down there, they are not in good shape. And the reason for that seems to be the increasing volume of stormwater and the decreasing quality of the stormwater. Since 1982, the energy use, between 82 and 2006, the energy use in Canterbury increased by 80%. And if you regard that as a surrogate for the use of cars, then that's an awful lot of extra partly burnt fuel and oil and detergents and everything else going into the streams and doing bad things. However, a success story where we can actually put some numbers on the situation is the response of the ducks. The mallards don't like native vegetation so much, they like grass. The native ducks love it. So the mallards are decreasing, the native ducks are increasing. So these are the lessons to be learned. It's a multi-valued philosophy, and that implies that your approach to it will have to be multidisciplinary. You really need to, if you want to sell it, identify economic benefits. You have to educate and involve the citizens groups. You have to regard it as a long-term process. It's still very much a work in process in Christchurch. We're looking at decades in order to go ahead. You have to check the progress, and Christchurch would not complain that it's been any more than partially successful so far, but even if it's only partially successful, it is still enormously satisfying. Thank you very much.